How's everyone doing today? If you're new to the channel, we make videos about film, camera-related reviews, and YouTube, so if you're interested, consider subscribing. In today's video, we're going to be talking about mistakes that beginner filmmakers make. So the first mistake was one that I definitely made as a beginner, was thinking that the frames per second or the FPS was always supposed to be high and the better, 60 frames a second, 120 frames a second was the best that you could have. And for filmmaking, at least for making films and stuff like that, it's actually not the best. The best would be 24 frames a second. It's a lot more cinematic. It just looks a lot better as well. 24 frames a second is more of what the eye naturally sees. So if you shoot at 30 or 60 frames a second, that's more of like flawless, smooth. Like in gaming, you need that for gaming, so there's no lag or anything like that. But 24 frames a second looks the best in video retrospect. So the second mistake beginner filmmakers make is that the ISO is set way too high, which is essentially the brightness of how your footage is going to look. So the higher your ISO is, the more grainy your image is going to look. And generally, you can't notice it until it gets to about 3200 ISO or ISO. And generally, I don't like to go above 3200, but sometimes you do need to, like when you're in low light situations. What you want to do is you want to go to the ISO that is dark enough where you think you need more light, and then go one more. Say if you're at 1600 and that's too dark, you just need to go one more up, and that's usually where you want it at. Sometimes you do want a little darker, but usually right in the middle is where you want it. So number 3 is when people get a brand new DSLR, switch into auto mode when they're filming, and then leave it in auto mode the entire time. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with leaving in auto mode, at least right when you get it or when you're a beginner, but as long as you're learning manual mode as you are filming in auto, and then once you are comfortable with all the settings, you can move over into manual and then start to learn from there. And so the mistake here would be just leaving in auto and never learning how to use manual mode, which is essentially not you're learning how to use your camera. So use manual mode, but only use auto when you're a beginner and you're just learning how to use it. Once you learn how to use it, then you can use manual, and you should. Mistake number 4 is to learn how to color grade. Now, not every time you pull out your camera you need to color grade your footage. Well, I do say most of the time you do. There are some shots where it's not needed, but learn how to use it, and that'll be a very nice skill to have. Number 5 is a big one: lighting. Lighting is very important for filmmaking or video making, though as a beginner you don't need to go out and buy the best softbox out there. Natural light is a great way a very inexpensive, free way to get your videos lit well. Like windows work great for natural light. While you don't want to solely depend on natural light like a window, because some days it can be cloudy, and one shot the light will be blocked, and another shot the sun will be shining in, and it just won't look good, because if you're using manual mode, like I mentioned before, the settings that you had before will change depending on the light. So when you get more into filmmaking, a softbox or just a light works really well. Number 6 is shaky footage. No one likes shaky footage. Definitely when you're a new filmmaker, without realizing it, you're gonna get shaky footage. When I have someone help me, like on sets when I'm filming something, they're not very familiar or experienced with cameras, and so they don't even realize that they're getting shaky footage. They're not focusing on that, and then while keeping that in mind, another thing that helps with shaky footage without going all crazy expensive like gimbals and stuff like that is tripods or gorilla pods. Since you're not holding the camera with your fingers, which your hands can be a little shaky sometimes, getting a gorilla pod or a tripod will help decrease the shake, which is a lot better. Lastly, number 7 is story. Especially for very new beginners, they focus on all the other tips, all of the ISO and the lighting and the shakiness, and they totally forget the story and drown themselves in all the specifics of the camera. Story is king. The last thing you want to do is come home from a long day of shooting and got pretty good footage, and then you forgot to tell the story, or just forgot the story altogether. So just make sure and think about the story throughout the video, and everything should work out well. So those are the most common mistakes we beginner filmmakers make. Don't get discouraged. I bet I've made every single one of those mistakes. In fact, every now and then I'll slip up on one, but luckily I know how to fix it, and so should you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, if you found some value in it, make sure to subscribe, turn on the bell notifications, and we'll see you guys in the next one.